All right. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for listening again. Today we have from St. Cloud Apollo, Jason Allen. Coach, thanks for joining today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate the invite.
So as we start things off here, we always go, what's your Wikipedia page? I know you just had a long drive to Indiana today, so I didn't even realize you were from out of state. So talk to me where you're from, where you played, and then what led you to the Eagles bench.
I'm from Muncie, Indiana. It's about the same size as St. Cloud, except it has the University of Ball State here. Couple hometown legends played at Ball State: Bonzi Wells, Dwayne Clemens, guys I played against in high school. I went to high school at Muncie Central, played there for 4 years, and then ended up after high school. I actually didn't go to college right away. Right, I stayed at home because I didn't know if I was ready for college, and it really wasn't. Most of the offers I got was junior college, and I was kind of in that mindset that if it wasn't, one of those big schools, then I wasn't going to try and go to college. Then I ended up going to Highland Community College, played there for 2 years. After Highland, ended up going to St. Cloud State, played there for 2 years under Coach Kevin Slagle and assistant coach Matt Reimer, who is now the head coach. Also played there with two coaches that's in our conference, in our conference and sections. In our sections, Nate Miller, and in our conference, Forrest Witt, I played there with them. Then after that, I really wasn't doing anything, working at a couple factories, playing in some men's leagues, and then kind of like hit rock bottom in life. Just kind of, I was struggling, and I ran into Brett Carmichael, and he told me that he had a AAU program called Minnesota Lockdown. So I'm like, hey, you need any help? He like, we may need some help. I'll give you a call in a couple days. He gave me a call. Me and him had a conversation. Then John, who also started Minnesota Lockdown, called me on three-way, and they're like, hey, we want to have you on the staff. So my first 2 years on the staff, I was just an assistant, really trying to understand the game. But before I got on the sidelines to coach AAU, I thought I really knew the game because I played basketball. I was wrong. Just because you play basketball does not mean you're going to be a good basketball coach, and I found that out. So like I said, I was assistant for the first 2 years. My first year under Brett, because John coached an older group and Brett coached a younger group. So my first year under Brett, I really was just trying to learn the game, observing things. Then going into my second year, I started learning the game, observing the game, but then watching the game from a different standpoint to see what my coaching philosophy would be if I ever would be a head coach. Because at that time, I didn't think about being a head coach or anything. And so then the third year came back, and I had got hired on at North Junior High here in St. Cloud. And while I'm at it's like a orientation we have here every year for the school year, while I'm there, I run into Dean Kessler. He's like, hey, Jay, would you be willing to do you want to help be a volunteer? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I was really nervous then because at that time, AAU is totally different from high school. And so the same year I became the volunteer coach for the Eagles, I'd be able to become my own head coach for Powerhouse. And so both of that worked out well because I was learning from, but at the same time, I was learning from John and Brett. So I was learning from two people that had associations with Apollo. So anyway, make long story short, Dean ended up retiring, and then Enoch Dix ended up becoming the head coach, and I became the top assistant coach, which was the head JV coach. Then that next year, he wasn't brought back. The job was open. I applied for it, and honestly, I did not think I was going to get the job because if you think about it, I didn't have no high school coaching experience. I had 1 year of being a head coach at AAU. I had 2 years of being an assistant under Dean, so I didn't think, 1 year under Dean, 1 year under Enoch, I didn't think I was going to get it. And time went on, and so as soon as Dave had told me I had applied, I want you to be the interim head coach. So when you're the interim head coach, you got to do everything like the head coach is supposed to be. And I'm still doing all this, like doing open gym, off-season weightlifting. As players are having problems in school, I'm dealing with that, still being intern, not knowing I'm being the head coach. But at the time, once the job came, I felt like I could be good if I got it, So I got hired, and there it was from there. I got hired, and when I first got hired, my thing was to change the culture because the year before that, we was really in some shambles. It really wasn't no discipline. I didn't feel like guys were playing hard, and so I knew once I got the job, those were my two things: was to bring discipline to the program on and off the court, and make sure guys played hard every game.
And those are things I definitely want to hit on here down the road. But I want to touch on the AAU thing first. I know sometimes maybe I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but the unintelligent basketball fan likes to throw some shade at AAU and think, oh, it's bad basketball. And that's just not true, right? That couldn't be further from the truth. We've talked about this before, how much both of our guys, we have guys who usually kind of overlap on different AAU teams, kind of being half an hour east of you guys. And if it's Comets, if it's Powerhouse, like you mentioned, if you're getting into the Heat, Crossfire, there's good AAU coaches and there's really good programs and good situations for kids. But I don't know, what's the biggest thing that you were able to take from AAU and apply to being a high school coach?
Well, particularly at Apollo, if you know most AAU teams, depending on if you coaching a top team or a second team, they're stacked. Everybody was the man at their team, right? So I think and then coming back at Apollo, we had about 6, 7 guys that probably could have started for us and play heavy minutes. Well, we wasn't able to do that. Well, AAU was able to help me be able to figure out how to play guys, at a certain, make sure everybody not got equal playing time, but they played enough minutes to where they were able to help us. And that's what AAU does. And I also think it helps you control at some point egos. Not saying it's bad egos, but every kid from a top AAU team was the man on their team. You got to explain. It's like when Coach K took over for the Olympics team and he had to explain to Kobe, LeBron, and Wade. You got to explain to top guys, like, we got to be able to share the ball. Yeah, you'll get yours, but we got to do it collectively as a team. If we don't, we're not going to win as a unit. And I think that's what happens in AAU too sometimes, is that you get some teams that just play freestyle ball. Well, now you got a lot of coaches who actually coach in AAU like they would coach a organized high school basketball team. Like, we practice, we got sets, we got out of bound plays. And before, I remember AAU used to be just roll the ball out there and play, but I think it has changed over time. So
I definitely agree with that. There's, like I said, there's really good coaches, really good programs that are, they're helping kids improve a lot during the off season. You've done this now for a couple of years at Apollo, and obviously you guys had a really good season this past year. We're ranked in the top 10 for a lot of the year. I know we had a really exciting first game of the year where it was pretty much first to 100. It felt like for a while there was going to win that game, and you guys came out on top. But obviously, you guys had a good season. You kind of had a weird situation in that you're one of the few schools. So we had our section final, like I've talked about many times on different people I've had on here. We played our section final game as normal up north in Duluth. But you guys actually had what was expected was the 50 people or the parents only or crowd in your section final game. So before I want to talk about just the adversity dealing with those kids after winning that game, talk about how weird that was going into the section final with such a small crowd. We expect high school basketball section final packed gym, but you guys, I remember looking at the clips on Twitter, it was like it was a scrimmage, for the crowd that was at your game. So just talk about that experience, because that was so unique. So I think you're the only team that played in that modified crowd, at least on the boys' side.
Yeah, it was tough because we didn't find out that we were going to have a modified crowd probably to about 2 o'clock, and the bus supposed to leave at 5. So now it goes from focusing on the game plan and, everything else to try to get the guys ready for the game too. We got to find out who's going to be able to come to the game, how many tickets can we have. Then players got to realize, I may have to tell this person they can't go to the game. Coaches may say, hey, I have to tell this person I can't go to the game. So mentally, you all worry. You're not even worried about the game no more. You're worried about who's going to come, because you want to be able to keep your mental, focus. So once we was able to get that took care of, which took a while because there was some people that needed to come for the kids that couldn't come, and I felt bad for that too. But like I told them, we only can control what we can control. And what we can control is how we come out and play in this game tonight. And so I think we didn't really get focused until we actually got inside the gym. But it's weird because even when I was talking to Forrest before the game, we expected for Melrose to have a packed house. Because that was a good game. If you think about it, we beat them once and they beat us once. So it was, and they were playing good towards the end of the season. We were still trying to get together coming off a 4-game losing streak towards the end of the season. So, we were able to kick it in high gear in sections. And then you get to that game and you expect it to be, 4,000, 5,000 people, and there's probably 100 people there. And it was weird, but it was loud. Alex fans was loud. They sat right behind our bench. They was loud, and our fans was loud. Like I told our players, you may never get another chance of playing a game like this. Don't take it for granted based on the crowd.
You guys had, I really liked your guys' your reaction from the bench and your guys' little locker room video that came up on Twitter. I thought that was really cool. And that's some of the funnest part about March basketball, seeing those teams, like us in Princeton or you guys at St. Cloud Apollo, who, obviously Dean had some really good teams there that, made it into the state tournament. But, for the last few years haven't had that success at the section level, and seeing just the joy of those kids winning that section final. Just talk about how that felt and that experience with that group. Because like you said, things have kind of came at you fast here in the last handful of years coaching, where now all of a sudden, boom, you're early in your career and you get a section championship. Just talk about the vibe around your team when you guys won that game.
That's probably one of the best feelings I think me and all them probably have ever experienced in basketball. Remember, I don't know if you knew, but I had been coaching these guys since 8th grade through AAU, then all the way to Apollo. And like I said, I can remember when they were freshmen or sophomores, we talked about that if you guys stay on the right path and everybody get better, come your junior or senior year, we're going to have a chance to get to state, and to be able to speak that, but then to be able to live it out and play it out and win it was crazy. Like when I hit the floor, when I hit the floor, I wasn't only thinking about like what I've been through to get there, what those players been through to get there. I mean, if you think during the middle of the season, we lost 4 games in a row. We were ranked, and I think we were ranked in the top 5 or maybe in the top 10, lost 4 games in a row from having to sit players, having to define roles for guys, and just being able to guys to be good teammates. And I think if we don't go through that moment where we lose those 4 games in a row, I'm not sure we end up being able to win the section, because I think that made or break us. I had to show them some tough love throughout that time, and I think we learned a lot for that 4-game losing streak we had.
You had a really strong personal connection with your guys, as you just mentioned. So talk about the next day then. I know we've talked about this with a handful of other coaches, but I just think it's so important because, winning basketball games is great, but it's the life skills with high school sports that are so valuable, which can help these kids, propel themselves towards success, because if we can help them with adversity. And so just talk about those conversations and how you guys took the news of the state tournament being canceled.
Oh, man, we took it hard, devastated. It wasn't a dry eye in the room, and that's from our athletic director to our principal, right? Because at the time that we got the call, he got the text message or call that it wasn't going to happen, I was talking to players about how practice was going to go. We were reminiscing on how last night when, he hit this shot, this happened, and then the AD called us in there, and then that happened, man, that hurt, and it hurt me for them, not for me, because I think that, and this is just me being who I am, I think that hopefully I can get the program back there one day. But who's to say if those guys will ever play in a championship game, or they will never play in a state championship game? And I wanted it more for them than I did for me, because they earned it. They get all the credit for the wins. I give them the tools, and they just used it. But it was a hurtful situation. But as I told them, the one thing somebody told me was like, how many teams get to finish the season with a win and with a championship win? So it was tough, but I would like to see those guys on that stage, and I think it probably would have helped a couple of them get more, looks from colleges being able to play on the big stage. But you only can control what you can control. Your team wasn't able to do a lot. It wasn't just us, so I wasn't even selfish about it. I felt bad not only for us, but for all the other teams in Minnesota and all the other states that wasn't able to play for a state title, but had the talent or had the opportunity to. So it was tough. It was
funny. We played you guys the first game of the year, then we lost to Delano the second game of the year. And both of you guys, because I respect what both of you and Terry are doing at your schools, and building good programs up there and having success. And I told both of you guys, like, hey, hopefully we see you guys down the road again in the state tournament.
Right.
And you say that in December, and you're not really thinking anything of it. But sure, we all 3 won our section, and unfortunately, we weren't able to meet again. But we'll see you early, hopefully early next year.
I hope so. Yes, I hope we see everybody we're supposed to see next year. I hope we're able
keeping
to
things on schedule. One thing that I've been so impressed with, and we've talked through if it's in summer tournaments and stuff before, but just like you've mentioned, like the discipline and the creating a culture of accountability within your program. So talk about, maybe what it was like before you took over, and then some things that you did to help, or maybe some of the systems you have in place to help, hold your kids accountable.
I think one thing I do to hold our kids accountable is like they have a lot of people within the school system that they deal with, whether it's a case manager, whether it's a social worker or somebody. So I try to always include them on how to deal with this player if he's having a disciplinary issue, because I can be straightforward, but something may have happened at home, or something may be going on in the classroom that I don't know about. So I always try to be 50-50. I try to give the kid the benefit of the doubt. At the same time, we have our rules that we got to stand by. Sometimes it's tough. Like sometimes I set some of our better players out, and it may have cost us some games, right? Like when we're doing that 4-game losing streak, I set guys out for disciplinary issues. But if I don't sit them out, then I go against everything I said I was going to do when I took over the program. It's all, like I always tell players, it's not easy for me to sit you out for disciplinary issues, but if I don't, you're not going to grow as a person. Even in my own life, I had to go through disciplinary issues for me to get where I got to get. But discipline separates good from great. Simple as that. If you don't have discipline, it's gonna be a struggle to be a positive person in the world without discipline.
Can you talk about some like the non-negotiables or some of the rules that you have in place? I think sometimes coaches, we create that preseason handbook or have that meeting, and sometimes we can just fill kids with a bunch of stuff that goes in one ear and out the other. So what are some of the big things that you ask of your kids?
I ask them to be respectful in class. All right, ask them to be respectful to coaches. Ask them to be respectful to their peers. Those are 3 non-negotiable. If you can't do that, then you're going to have disciplinary issues. And it was a struggle at first, but for the most part, guys have got on board and understand that our coaching staff is not going to tolerate you basically, if you're being disrespectful, you're not being a good teammate, and we're not going to tolerate that.
Here's what I can say about Jason is, and this isn't just, he's just not blowing smoke here and trying to sound like he knows what he's doing at Apollo. I remember playing you on a Sunday I think it was at the Whitney Center, and we kind of were just, talking afterhand. And it doesn't matter who won. It was a breakdown tournament, right? But I remember a couple guys came up to you, and you're like, hey, what time do workouts start tomorrow? And they're like, 6 a.m. You're like, not 6:01, not 6:05.
Yes.
That's summer stuff, right? I mean, it's really easy in the summer for us to let our guard down and be like, all right, man, you're rolling at 6:10 or you're rolling at – but being punctual even in the summer, man, I was really something I was really impressed with, and I saw that firsthand.
No, I think being on time is huge for kids, because I think sometimes I've had kids come in and say, well, I was here at 6:01. No, practice started at 6 o'clock. Or I was here at 3:32. No, practice started at 3:30. And like I tell them, telling you to be on time and being respectful is not a basketball thing. It's a life thing. And when you get into the real world and got to work with people, those are 2 things you have to do, is be respectful and be on time. Otherwise, you're going to lose the job.
Exactly. You talk about the accountability piece, but I'm sure part of the reason why you can be hard on your guys is that you have good relationships with them. So talk about, aside from coaching them for, 3-4 years, like you mentioned, what are some of the strategies that you use to build up those positive relationships with your players?
Just letting them know I'm open to have that conversation. I think for kids to have to trust you, they got to build. I think for you to have a good relationship with kids, they got to be able to come and talk to you and be able to trust you. That whatever they had that conversation with is going to stay between you based on the conversation. But our guys always know they can come and have a conversation with me. I'm always going to be honest with them about their behavior. I may even bring up, well, hey, I used to do that too, so I understand where you're coming from. But I try to be human with them, right? I try to make them sound like coach is not invincible. I make mistakes too. I'm not perfect either. I'm trying to grow every day. But the thing is, you have to try to grow every day. Don't accept that. Let's say you have 2 or 3 bad days. Don't accept that. Fight through that. You got to fight through adversity. And I just try to share some of the examples I've been through, some of the examples I know our former players at Apollo been through, or you may use guys from pro or college, whatever. I just try to use some examples to show the guys how we can build that relationship. And then once I'm able to build that relationship, which I am an intense coach, I'm able to coach them in an intense way based on them knowing that coach is really caring. He's not just picking on me. That's what I tell the guys. I'm not picking on you. I want to see the best version of you while you're here at Apollo.
That's good stuff. No, and I appreciate, like I said, this is you're practicing this. This isn't just you just saying this on for some cool sound bites on this by you. I mean, I've seen it front and center. So you do a great job with that. And now let's get into, more of the, we talked a bit about like some of the program related stuff. Let's talk about, you as a coach and just kind of the stuff that you guys run. So what are some ways, because you mentioned that your group played really well together. You had some really talented kids, and like you mentioned, you had probably handful of kids that could have started that didn't on your team this past year. So how do you get your kids to play so well as a group?
First, the thing is I always use, like I said, I may use team examples. Like one of the teams that I like a lot is like the Fab Five. So I always talk that to our players about. That team may not have won a national championship, but they had 5 McDonald's All-Americans, and they were all selfish. They were all unselfish. Or I may say, let's look at this Kentucky team to where when Karl Anthony Towns and the Twins was there, I try to show them examples of teams that have balanced scoring, and how they're successful. Because like I told them, we can't win with just one guy averaging 20 points or 2 guys averaging 20 points. We will not win. And I think us having balanced scoring this year was a huge part of our success. So I try to show them examples of that too. Of if he get 20, you should be happy, because if he's getting 20, then now maybe you can get 18. Or if he's getting 16, you can get 14. Or we just got to have balanced scoring. And I think that's the thing you have to try to sell to kids today, whether it's at the college level or the high school level, that you're going to need 3 or 4 guys for your team to be successful. You're not just going to be successful with one guy.
So you guys have a section that consists of a lot of your conference teams that you see twice a year, and you probably see a couple teams that you mentioned Alexander for the 3rd time. So you and your guys are probably pretty well in tune with what those teams are going to run, who the guys are on those other teams. So what are some ways that you prepare for, you as a coach prepare for games, but also how you get your guys or your players ready for games as well?
Well, first of all, we go scout the game. Whatever team we play, we try to go scout. We use huddle. Then once we get to practice, we'll have our scout team go over some of the things those players run. As I'm at the game, writing down a scouting report, so I may read that to the players after practice. And then we'll watch some film too, because I think watching film help players a lot, because sometimes your scout team, not that they're not talented, they may not be able to run the set the same way the team that you're like scouting, whether it's Alex, whether it's Brainerd, whether it's Fergus. So you go watch film, and then on film we try to break down film to where this is how we want to guard this guy, or this is how we want to attack them in the post, this is how we want to attack the pick and roll. So I use film a lot to try to get our guys ready.
How much time do you spend on film? Like what's like 70-30, 50-50 between watching your own film and watching your opponents?
I think we watch more of our opponent's film than we do our film. Sometimes our guys want to watch our film to see their own stats. It's fun when they're doing good, but when I'm stopping it and pointing out what they're doing wrong, then nobody want to watch our film. So we try to stick to watching our opponent's film more, so we don't have too much confusion in the video room.
So you mentioned some of the sets. How many sets do you try to have your guys know? If say you got Alexandria on a Tuesday night in February, how many sets do you want to know versus how deep do you go in your scouting reports with the players that you're facing?
As far as the scouting report, I try to go to main motion offense that team is running. And then as far as the sets, it depends, because even myself, I change what sets I run game to game based on who you're playing. So far as when it comes to defending sets, it's like we just got to stick to our own defensive principles. But I try to run that main motion offense and maybe one or two sets that the team runs in practice. I try to have our scout team emulate that style so we can be ready for that.
So you're an aggressive team defensively, similar to how we play. You're looking to turn teams over. And so one thing we always wrestle with is how do we address the guy who starts for the other team who just definitely isn't a threat? And we've always erred on the side of let's still play that guy aggressively because we don't want them to be a pressure release. How do you guys address if there's a team that maybe has one or two weaker offensive players?
Nope. We try to if the guy is guarding one of the weaker players, that guy is trying to be a roamer, right? We try to have him be a roamer because I like to run and trap, and we switch defenses every possession. So it depends on what defense we is. We may be in man one possession, we may come back down to being 3-2 zone. But if you have a player that can't score, we're going to roam away from him. But when he gets it, we're going to contest him. We're going to play him honest. We're not just going to leave him wide open, because the time you decide to leave that guy wide open is the time he probably goes off for 25 points. So we try to make sure everybody on the scouting report, no matter how deep the bench is, we make sure our players know they are a threat.
We always had a running joke within our staff few years ago when we weren't as good that whenever I put like role player down the scouting report, that dude would get like 18 against us. So I actually stopped saying that, and I just took those words out. Like I'll put his points per game or whatever up there. So
that happened to us probably like 8 or 9 games last year. Seriously, I used to go off in practice like this guy averaged 8 points, and we're letting him get 25. So no, that happened. So I quit calling guys, and I'm one of the people I'd be like, that guy's not good, or he's a role player, just like you said, and he goes off for 25 or 30 or 15 and 10. So yeah, I quit doing that too.
All right, so November, January, March, what do your practices look like, and then how do they kind of vary from that early stage, middle of the year during the grind of January, then into like getting ready for the playoffs?
Well, in November, I basically try to start out just from like basic, doing basic drills, doing our main motion offense. Most of the time in high school basketball, as you know, when you got guys coming back, most of them know the offense. So that's kind of like, so let's say we start on Monday, and then we always have that scrimmage Friday and record. Monday and Tuesday is basically tryouts, right? Then Wednesday and Thursday is basically we're doing our drills, going through our motion offense. Then after the scrimmage, then we start working on what we can get better at, right? So we start doing defensive schemes, we start doing defensive drills, offensive drills. As the season goes on, practice gets different because you're not doing as many drills. You're working mainly on what schemes you're going to play offensively and what schemes you're going to play defensively against the team you play against. We try to do a lot of skill work, though. I like to do a lot of skill work in practice because I still think guys need to get in reps as far as getting up shots, or if it's pump fake one, dribble move, dribble drive moves. But I still try to make sure we get in skill work throughout the year. So we may go to practice. Practice may be 5:30 to 7. We may go 7 to 7:30 skill work.
Good stuff. Do you shorten practices as the year goes on, or are you kind of right around that hour 45, 2 minutes up until the end of the year?
I started off with 2 hours my first 2 years, and then I ended up talking to Dean, and he's like, yeah, by the time you get January and February, guys, and I noticed that guys were starting to like wear down. So we went into an hour and a half practice because I think you can do what you got to get done in an hour and a half if you go hard. A lot of times we were struggling with, you're not going hard, okay, we're going to keep practicing. But at the end of the day, after I think an hour and a half to 2 is pretty much it. But late in the season, like we were just talking about, I think an hour and a half is good towards late.
How much 5-on-5 do you guys play in practice?
We just started doing a lot more this year, not a lot more this past year. Last year we didn't do as much. This year we started doing a lot 5-on-5, and it actually helped our guys understand not only the team's offense we playing against, but our other offense. So like you may have a set you may have that first option may be there. When then you're going against your own teammates, now you got to use your second and third option. So I would say we probably play 50-50 5-on-5 in practice. Just depends.
How much do you jump in during 5-on-5 and coach them up, or do you kind of let them play through mistakes?
I coach them up. Sometimes I don't play in it, but sometimes I let them go through. But last year it got to the point to where I was trying to get better personally as a defensive coach. So I stopped them a lot of times just for my own growth. So sometimes I let them go. Sometimes we'll stop it. But I try not to be like stop every play because I know that can get annoying to players and even coaches. So
I'm going a little tangent here just because I thought of something as you were talking about jumping in 5-on-5. You added Preston Whitaker to your staff this past year, who I played AAU, played a high school game. I was at Brainerd. He was at St. Cloud. He was a legend, real good player in the NSIC. So
he said you talked a lot of trash. He said you talked a lot of trash.
For my ability levels, I ran my mouth too much. Yeah, I which is, you know what? And I tell my players that, I don't know, like within we had one of our assistant coaches joined a couple years ago, and one thing I'm like, I kind of like when guys like have a little swagger and say a little bit. Like you hit a shot, like let them know. Yep. Like, this shouldn't be boring. Like basketball should be fun, right? You're not gonna, swear at the dude or call him an MF or whatever, but you're gonna like, hey, guard me, like just like simple stuff like that. But does Preston ever lace him up and go at your guys and show him his true legend status at Apollo?
I think he did maybe 1 or 2 times in open gym, but no, he hasn't. Him and Middle Gravel played 1-on-1. Then I think it was 1-1. But I told Mike if he'd have called Preston his prime, he probably wouldn't have been able to score a bucket. Preston's one of the better defenders I've seen. But adding him to our staff was huge this year. It was really huge because he could speak from what Apollo meant when he played from it. As you said, when those guys were freshmen, the Apollo, as far as it wasn't as good as what it had been, like you said, when Dean was there. So Preston could speak to like how you got to hold accountable, how Dean held them accountable. Because I tried to take some stuff from my own philosophy, but add some stuff from Dean's philosophy and mixed it together to build the program. And knock on wood, so far it's been working. But it's good to have a player that's been through that can speak to that for you, so kids ain't just like, oh, coach just talking. No, Preston can speak to the truth about it.
Yeah, it's hard to, I think sometimes coaches get into trouble when they come in, they want to reinvent the wheel and change everything, right? Because in most cases, you're not getting a brand new team. You're getting kids who, a lot of kids as 10th, 11th, and 12th graders were in the program the year before as 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. And if you try to change everything, you're going to be playing catch-up all year. I think it's really important, like you mentioned, to kind of focus on things you want to focus. And for you, it seems like it was a lot of the, accountability and discipline. And then you can slowly add more pieces to what you want your program to look like. Offensively now, I know you guys you're really good defensively. You switch a lot of stuff up. Let's talk on the offense side of the ball first. For teams that aren't familiar with the Eagles, what are you looking to run? How much of it is what you do is motion versus set base? So just give us a general overview of your guys' offensive philosophy.
Our offensive philosophy is basically pushing the ball up the floor, trying to score quick, right? If it's not there, and I think your offensive philosophy changed based on the personnel. The last 3 years, I've had 5 or 6 guys that can break you down off the dribble. So sometimes we may run the Memphis offense that John Calipari used to run. We run some of the Gonzaga pick and roll, and then we've had big guys. So sometimes we run the Villanova 4 out, 1 in. I try to be the coach that let guys. It's like not hold guys back, right? So I try to let them play to their ability. So, like, if you think you can get to the basket, that's fine. But in our dribble drive offense, you only can dribble 3 times. After that, you need to give it. I mean, do they dribble more? My philosophy is if you can't score off 3 or 4 dribbles, pass the ball. And that's something I was able to implement to those guys. But I felt like we didn't really get successful with that until this senior year where they understand drive and kick. We understand drive and throw up layup. We didn't understand drive. You know what I mean? We understood drive and kick this year, and we just made that extra pass. And so I just like to get up and down, like to do a lot of pick and roll, like to do some isolation situations. But like I said, I like to let guys play to their strength until I feel like, hey, let me get in. And so I try not to tell guys like, hey, this ain't now your half court shot ain't your shot. But I try to tell guys, I will never take you out most of the time over a shot, but I will take you out over a turnover, not getting back on defense.
So whenever we've scouted you or we've played you, and we have some common opponents down the later in the year, and I kind of rewatch you playing a team where I'm not really watching you guys, but obviously you're the other team. It seems like the main core what you guys run is the Memphis, the dribble drive stuff. So what are some of your, you mentioned the 3 dribbles. What are some other teaching points that you guys are looking to work with your guys on, or have your guys, or rules that you have your guys follow within that offense?
Well, first of all, you got to move, right? I think some guys see when you start dribbling, guys are standing. Well, if you're standing while that guy's dribbling, by the time he's ready to make it past, the defender's sitting there waiting on you because they're standing. So no matter what, you got to move. We try to have the guy on the block. He's opposite side of whatever side the guy drives, so you can dish off to this guy. If it's not there, you get it to the wing, and he starts to but you have to get deep down in the paint. I don't need you trying to attack around the perimeter. I need you when you get it, because it's like a wheel offense. I need you turning the corner, trying to get into the paint, trying to get deep as you can. And so that's one of our rules in there. Also, too, don't get stuck. Don't get stuck. Like, sometimes guys will come down 7-8 times, dribble the ball 7-8 times, 3-4, and move. You just got to keep moving. But you always got to be willing to make that extra pass in a dribble drive offense, because if you're not, there's no reason for us to do it. I try to tell guys, our Memphis offense isn't one-on-one. It's get the ball inside, kick it out, or get the ball inside and score. But we're not going to get the ball inside and dribble. You have to have movement, ball movement, and player movement for that offense to be successful. But you have to have the personnel that can play that offense too.
What are your rules for your 5 or your big guy in your dribble drive?
He stays on the block opposite side. So for our 5, he goes opposite side of the driver. For our 4, he trails the driver. So wherever the driver is going on the wheel, so the driver may go to the right, that 4 guy is up the top of the key trailing them. And then if he hands it off to the 3, well, that 4 is trailing them there. So when he dribbles down into the paint, he has somebody to kick it back out to. And that's what that worked for us really well, because our guys can penetrate so deep in the lane. And they were willing to kick it out this year.
Okay. Do you guys get a lot of drop down passes to your 5? Do you feel like that's a shot that you get a lot of?
This year was the year we got it. We had in the past. Honestly, we had in the past. It was dribble drive. I'm gonna get my pull up jump shot. I'm gonna get to the layup. But this year, Michael Gravel, Chang Hoff, Jalen Williams, even Portia Bowe, they did a really good job of getting into the paint and dropping it off to our 5. And we had a 5 that was willing to post up and finish this year. So that was huge too. Thomas is strong in there. So
we talked about your 5. We talked about the 4. What are the non-guards? Maybe your 2 or 3, if it's a more traditional numbering system, or just the other guards or wings. How are they moving off of penetration?
So if that guy dribbles towards you, it's just a handoff. It's a complete handoff. So when he dribbles toward the wing, he's handing off to you. But your job is to turn the corner. If you can't, you go over to you dribble over to the wing and you hand it off there. And that guy's trying to get in the paint. But the guards are trying to, it's like a wheel action trying to get into the paint. And like I said, the 4 and the 5 is opposite of that, and then the 4 is trailing that. So you have somebody kick back out. But the offense is not going to work unless we get deep into the paint with the penetration.
Transition offense here before we get to defense. Transition-wise, do you have set lanes that you want guys running in, or are the spots relatively interchangeable?
Relatively interchangeable. This year, I'm working on doing that where we got set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is how you run, because I believe this year we won't be as tall as we've been in the past. So in the past, we're going to try to score real quick, and so we're going to try to do that Michigan State / Kansas push it up the court offense this year, as far as in our fast break.
Good stuff. Defensively, now you mentioned that you will switch between man and zone. How much do you work on? Because I know you guys will switch it up. Usually it's like, the teams that mix up, it's like make this, miss this, or switch on a free throw. But you guys are just switching up on the fly sometimes. So how do you work on that in practice to make it seem so seamless?
We work on it through, we play a lot of breakdown tournaments in the summer. So we worked on it a lot in the summer, and we worked on it a lot in practice. But sometimes it just goes off the motion of what I'm feeling what's going to work, or what I'm feeling has been working. We may start out in a diamond press. That may not work, so I may switch to a 2-2-1 press. That may not work, so we switch to a quarter-court diamond press. That may not work, we go to 3. But where we're really good at is when we're getting steals in a 2-2-1, and then we're switching it to a diamond. That's where we good, because then you get to confusing coaches on what press are you in. So it just depends.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It just depends on how the night's going, honestly. I never come out at night and say, we're going to go diamond all night, or we're going to go 2-2-1 all night, or we're going to go 3 all night. Just depends on how the night's going, and it depends on the personnel you got. Like, it was a while when we tried to press you guys, we had to get out of it because you had so many guys hitting 3s. So sometimes there's times where I'm like, we can press this team, they get to beat us, and we have to get out the press and just play strong half-court defense.
I think defense was a term that maybe wasn't thrown around too much that first game of the year. That second Friday when we played, and probably, sounds of it, you guys looking to play faster. We're looking to play faster. Seems like we're just don't have to run a clock, just put 100 up, and whoever gets there will win. But man-to-man defensively, what are some of your teaching points? I know you mentioned that you're going to roam off of a guy who maybe isn't as effective. What are some of your teaching points? Are you looking to trap anywhere in the half court on man? What are some things you guys look to achieve on that end?
In half court, if you're 1 pass away, you're in denial. If you're 2 passes away, you're in help. At times, we may switch everything. Like I said, based on the personnel we're playing, we may switch everything. As far as pick and rolls, we usually just go over pick and rolls. We may double, but with today's game, it's tough to double because we're playing. Most teams we've played this year, besides maybe 2 or 3, have all 5 guys that can shoot. So now it's hard to double because you're scrambling. Once you get a defense scrambling, good defenses can get some stops, but also you're going to pass up some open threes, and we had that happen too much this year. So we just stayed solid and played straight up man to man.
You mentioned your presses. Let's talk about your 3-2 or some of your half-court zones. What are you guys looking to accomplish when you switch to a half-court zone?
When we're going to 3-2, if we go 3-2, a team, I'm looking for guys to force a team to shoot the threes on the ring. Like, if you can't shoot it, we're going to go 3-2. Or we may switch it up 3-2 and go a trap that we haven't done a lot, but it has been successful when we had to do it. But when we go in a 3-2 zone, I'm looking to get the team and try to turn over the ball because I'm hoping they're going to make that cross court on the wing trying to get to the corner where we have our guy there. So it just depends. But that's the most of the zone that we run the most is a 3-2 zone.
When you do your 3-2, are you sliding the top guy down or do you keep him kind of free throw lining up?
Free throw lining up. Yep, try to keep them free throw line up because I know a lot of times that's where the team try to beat you in the zone too, is from the middle, from the inside out. And so sometimes we would slide that guy down, that other guard would slide down too. So now the opposite guard would slide down too, that wasn't on ball side. Now the high post is open and most guys can hit that consistent 15-foot jump shot if you open. So we try to keep our middle guy in the 3-2 zone up so he can have help at the high post.
So last thing here we'll do, I'm going to run you through a situation. Tom, I'm going to throw this on you. We didn't prep this, so I want to see how you would respond to this in this situation. Because as coaches, obviously things come at us fast. So here's your situation. You're down 3 with the ball. So down 3 with the ball. We got 15 seconds left, and you have 1 timeout. So down 3 with the basketball, 15 seconds left, and 1 timeout. Are you getting first question? Are you looking for a 3 or are you looking for a quick 2?
If you'd have asked me my first year coach, I'm looking for the 3 to tie it up. But now I'm looking for the quick 2, get a foul, get it back in. Hopefully they miss. So let's say we get a quick 2, we get a foul, they go back up 3. Then we're going for the 3. If not, we're going to get a quick foul. If they miss it, then I'm just going high screen pick and roll with Michael Gravel and push the ball to get the win. That's what I'm doing. So
you're going high pick and roll. All right. So what happens, when do you use that timeout, right? Because I know we want to save that timeout in case we score, we can call a timeout, set up our press. But at what point are you like, oh, crap, we need to call that timeout, and we got to run a play for a 3? Do you have like 5 seconds, 8 seconds? Where are you at with when you would jump in with that timeout?
As soon as they get done with the free throw, so let's say we come down, score the quick 2, okay. They hit the free throw. We're calling a timeout after that. After that, you have to give that timeout.
What about things break down on the front end of that? So you're still down 3 ball, 15 seconds left. They maybe switch your pick and roll or whatever. Now when are you throwing that timeout to try to get a 3 at the end of the horn?
Trying to get a 3, hopefully trying to get a 3 like on a back screen. You know what I mean? Like have my guy dribble towards his guy and then have a baseline guy coming up instead of back screen. It's one of the plays we run at Apollo. Knock on wood, so far we always get a wide open shot. But I'm not trying to just have a guy come down and do a freestyle move and pull up a 3. We're trying to even have a guy come off a double screen, or I'm trying to have a guy come off a back screen for a 3 in the corner.
All right, last question here, bonus question. I know we've both been kind of texting here the last few days and emailing about our summer stuff. So you guys have kind of been rolling since June 15th. I know more in the Metro, a lot of teams just kind of got fired up here after the 4th of July. So talk about what your summer programming has looked like, how it's been different from years past, and what things look like when you're in the gym, next week.
Our summer program, when you first come in, you used to come in our building any door. Now you only can come in door 12. When you first get in there, you have to have a mask on while in the hallways. We have a person from our district that checks your temperature. You sign your name in. If you don't have a mask, he gives you a mask. You can have your mask off in the gym, but it has to be on in the hallway. Then once we get in the summer, my thing is just getting up a lot of shots and working on moves, and working on defensive slides a lot. 'Cause I think the first thing that it comes to defense, a lot of kids don't play defense because they don't have the right positioning. So I try to work on defensive slides, getting up a lot of shots in the summer. If I want to add a new offense, work on that. So lately we've been working on, like me and you just talked about, how we're going to run our fast break this next year. That's what we've been working on so far. But practices, it's interesting to see how practice is going to go for the rest of the summer because we don't have no breakdown sports. And it's easy to have practice. It's easy for guys to say, I'm coming to practice and I'm playing a tournament. Now you're going to find out, I think, who's really wanting to get better because we don't have no games this summer. So I got to get more creative too because it does, after a while, practices does get old, scrimmaging against the same guy. So I got to be more creative too. Like I said, in the summer, we like to get up a lot of shots, work on a lot of dribble moves, and just get better offensively and defensively, whatever that may be. I never do the same drills every day. We try to switch it up every day so the guys don't get bored.
Are you running stuff 9 through 12, 7 through 12? What's the age range of the guys you're bringing in the summer?
We go about like 7 through 12, right? This year we actually, last year we had an 8th grader up on varsity. This year we're going to have another one up on varsity, so he comes a lot. So, but mainly 7 through 12. But this year is the first year that we're doing 7 through 12. In the past, we had just did 9 through 12.
Do you notice all of your guys, or the majority of the guys that you expected are there and not staying home because of COVID, or are you most of your guys missing?
Most of our guys are there that I expected to be there. We haven't had anybody miss because COVID. We had guys miss because they have other sports, but so far we haven't had anybody miss because of COVID. The guys that are supposed to be there have been there.
It's good stuff. Coach, before we go, do you have anything else that you want to share, things that coaches could write down and learn from you, the success you've had in such a short time at Apollo?
I just wanted to ask you, how did you deal with not being able to go to the state? How did that work for you?
It's not something weird. I know I haven't really addressed that too much in here. It was the one way I would describe it is it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. And the fact that we were there the year before and kids knew the experience, to me, again, I felt like they took it a little bit harder because, there was, we graduated 5 seniors that were really, really good for us the year before and had a lot of success. And then, so these guys were all kind of hungry for their opportunity. And then to qualify for the state tournament and know, okay, we're going to play at Williams, we're going to stay in the hotel. If we win, we play on TV, like all that sort of stuff. That was the hard part. I usually, that Friday I get a staff day or our AD lets me come over there and we, and I get to do all the paperwork and get like the seating stuff and all that stuff organized. So I was actually in the AD's office when we found out. I was actually texting Andre from Mound Wasanka about seeds, right? And I was like, do I have a claim over Apollo and Austin to get the 5, right? That's kind of right. So I was texting him about that, and he literally was responding, sent me a text, and I looked at it like, all right, didn't respond, and then he buzzed in again. He's like, hey, I'm sorry about the state tournament. I was like, what? So I go to Twitter and I saw John Malaya's tweet, and so I was actually over at the high school and I was there for the guys, and they were really bummed out about it. And we just had that conversation, kind of like what you had. Leading into the section finals, you only can control what you can control. And, unfortunately, they weren't able to have that game. But like you said, I think there's a lot of closure in at least having your section final. Like, they get their trophy. They know that they, like you said, they won their last game. The teams that I've really felt for was the teams who didn't even get to play their section final. And the girls' teams, like Becker, who's close to both of our schools, they were in the they were in the state championship game, right? And they didn't get to play that. That would have almost been more difficult, I think. That would have been hurt. Knowing, at least for us, to say, hey, we won our section. We weren't beating Minnehaha Academy, so like, it is what it is. Right. But that's kind of how we dealt with it. The kids were definitely down. There were less tears than I thought. Granted, they kind of found out at 10, and then we met as a team at 3, so that might have had that moment on their own. But yeah, that was how we dealt with it.
That's tough, man. No, man, I just want to say I got a lot of respect for your programs. I remember seeing you when I was a assistant. I remember seeing you just started, and you one of the guys that coach like me too. Like, you kind of get hyped with your players. You high-fiving them. So I really respect the style you coach and your philosophy, man. And I have fun playing against you last year.
Yeah, and I like playing against teams like where we don't have, our philosophy is at Princeton, I don't want to make this about me, I want to make this about you, but we try to just let the kids play mostly, and we try to structure practice and work on our concepts. And I personally like to play, even though you guys are good, I like to play teams like you guys who are going to just kind of play the same way. I don't like when teams try to, set us to death or slow it down. It makes it, like, I love coaching, but it makes it a little less fun because I just want kids to go play and go get shots up and attack and keep the ball going and not a lot of falls. And so, it's always fun playing you guys. And, Coach, I really hope we, knock on wood, we're able to have a normal schedule, and we'll see you in that first one there early December. And or actually, we play Tech first because we had a snow game. So we'll play Tech and then you guys. But, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys here down the road. And stay safe. I know you're at your daughter's graduation in Indiana, so congratulations to her. And
Thank you.
Stay safe and safe travels.
You too. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it. You have a good summer.
You too.
All right.